Hello everyone, my name is Claire Smith and a very warm welcome to you all. I'm delighted to welcome you to our webinar today, Digital Supply Chain, All Hype or Dead Without It, kindly sponsored by CI Hub. During the session, please send through your questions at any point using the questions box on the right-hand side panel of your GoToWebinar screen. And finally, a recording of this session will be sent to you tomorrow so you can view again at your own pace. Now it's my great pleasure to pass you over to our moderator for today, Andreas Michalski, CEO and founder of CI Hub. Thank you, Andreas. Over to you.
Thanks a lot. It's a real pleasure to be here, and it's a real pleasure to have Elliot, Frédéric, Josh, and Peter here. So I think it's an amazing group of people we have together. And today we want to talk about the digital supply chain. It's something what is in all talks, and there's a lot buzz around it. I do believe it's the most interesting thing in the last couple of years. And I do think there's a lot of things to learn about it and to talk about it. And we have an amazing group of people here today to do that. And I would love to start that session with giving everybody a couple of minutes to introduce themselves, give a little bit of background, as I do think you're really amazing. Most of you have spent lots of time within the industry, so you have a lot of saying and you have a lot of experience, and it's amazing to share that. Click. So I would love to hand over to Elliot and then to Frédéric to give them a couple of minutes to introduce you so you understand the competency of all of them who are on our board today. Elliot, really happy to hand over to you.
Great. So Andreas, thanks for inviting me, and for the Henry Stewart family as well. So nice to see everyone again. So just quick round of introductions. My name is Elliot Sedegah. I lead strategy and product marketing for Adobe Experience Manager Assets, which is our enterprise digital asset management and rich media delivery platform. It's actually very timely that we're talking about digital supply chain. We actually at Adobe call it content supply chain, where you start to think about different technologies, people, and processes coming in from many different places. So interesting to see a very broad panel here of different experts, where that's what it really takes to make this work in practice. So nice to be here today.
It's wonderful to have you. Good.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you, Andy. So thank you to get the honor to share knowledge and best practices. So my name is Fred. I'm the CEO of Activo, which is a French consultancy company. So started 4 years ago. But by where my background, I started on the customer side, agencies at the top, photo agencies, working also at one time for vendors. So more or less, I get multiple roles during the last 25 years. And of course, I started the damn things in 1998, something with Xinet Full Press, if you remember. And at that moment today, of course, we are providing agnostic consultancy for brands, retailers, agencies. And so even now on our side, we are playing with more than 15 DAM systems from Adobe, MediaGraph, Censhare, Wedia, of course, a couple of French ones that maybe you are not aware, but more or less we are playing all these roles, and so it's always a pleasure. And as Elliot was saying, it's a lot of challenges today, and especially as soon as we have to find the right path to a DAM system. But at the end of the day, what we are seeing is the success is 5% of technology and 95% of people. So we have to take care about processes and how to manage the digital supply chain.
Very good. Gert, click. So handing over to Josh.
Perfect. Thanks for having me, Andy. My name's Josh Van Dyke. I'm the Vice President of American Sales at Censhare, so oversee sales for North America. I've been in the tech world and the software tech space for about 17 years, and specifically in the DAM space for the last over 5 years. Censhare, if people aren't aware of who Censhare is, Censhare's been around for over 22 years and was actually started by founders in the tech plus content space. And so working actually initially with a lot of publishers and creating content and also storing their digital assets. And at the core of Censhare is digital asset management, content management, and product information management. So really creating a full digital experience around your content and everything that you're creating and publishing out to the omni-channel world. So excited to be here, excited to add my 2 cents into the panel.
It's amazing to have you. Thanks for contributing your time to this one. Peter, it's really amazing to have you. I think your book, the DAM book, is a really have to read for everybody in the DAM industry. Really happy that you're on the board. Give you some time to introduce you.
Thanks, Andy, and I'm very pleased to be here as well with this distinguished panel. I am the Chief Product Officer of MediaGraph. We're an 11-year-old company. We're not all that well known, but we're on the 3rd iteration of the product and have built a really fantastic one. As you said, I've been writing books about DAM. The first one was published in 2005, and I've written 6 different ones, and have been very focused on this space, which I came to as a photographer, like Fred. And I'm on my second gig as a product head for a DAM. And what we've been doing at MediaGraph is being very focused on powerful knowledge management tools coupled with first-class media management capabilities. And we see a lot of changes out in the way that people are communicating, including crowdsourced changes. We believe that DAM is changing from few to many communication to many communication, and that's a big challenge, especially in these supply chain issues. We work in conservation, education, research, storytelling. We love our clients, and excited to bring them CI Hub, and excited for this conversation today.
Perfect. So it's really great that you all spend some time for this round. Good. Click. Let me just introduce myself. My name is Andreas. I'm in that marketing automation space for about 20 years. And with CI Hub, the central idea is to make the access to marketing assets as easy as it can be. On the one hand, for all of the system vendors, and on the other hand, and this is the focus, for the users. Accessing assets, images, text, videos, whatever it might be, should be extremely easy. And we do believe that by providing plugins that live within the application you're using, this is the most important step to make using assets as easy as it can be, because it now happens into context. And with this in mind, connecting everybody, and it's really an honor to have everybody on the board and have all their systems connected to CI Hub. We have here really 5 industry leaders. It's really a pleasure to have that. Good. Click. And we are really happy that that notion, the digital supply chain, is something what is grasping more attention, or more and more attention actually, because it's really what we believe is that the asset should be wherever you really need it. And this is, and we all know that we are using dozens of different applications across the work process, but the asset and the work process and my task should always be available in the most easy way it can be. And this is what we understand is a digital supply chain, is having access to your work results or to your work assets wherever you are. So this is our view on this one. And it would be really interesting to understand on how you view what is the digital supply chain from your point of view. And in the next step, what do you think is the most relevant benefit for users of the digital supply chain within the organization, within the individual work process? And maybe we just can go through your understanding and vision of a digital supply chain. That would be really amazing for all of our listeners here. And maybe we just start with you, Elliot.
Great, I'll start, and I'm sure everyone has a view of this as well, because we've seen this is something that's been on a lot of our minds, but we've seen it take hold quite much this year. And for us, what we've seen is the drive for what we call these high impact personalized experiences is what's driving the need for a lot of our brands to rethink and think about digital supply chain. So we actually call it our content supply chain when we think about how this content is actually going to be meeting these personalization needs. And if you think about the different segments that are out there, the different channels, many different products that are out there as well. And then at the end of the day, you want to make sure you're telling this unique story to a unique individual, and content is the key piece of that. So that's the key piece. That's what's driving the need for these pieces. So we can actually generate the content that we need at this volume that's there. And then the great thing for the DAM community is, we've been talking about putting DAM in the center of this customer experience for the longest point in time. And we reached that point where it's actually rising to the highest levels. So we were actually in Las Vegas talking to a very popular casino hotel brand. And the CMO said, you know what? We need to say the same exact story to all of our guests, but in a personalized way. I don't want to hear any guests see the same piece of content even more than once. And if you start to think about that demand, that's an incredible demand. If you think about the number of people, the segments that are coming in there, and then the pressure it's putting on an organization to plan, produce, and deliver, and then optimize all of that content around there. So digital supply chain, this full supply chain that you're thinking about, this is the area that's starting to be elevated to the highest levels in the business now that want to meet these personalization objectives.
Okay, yeah. That's really a great view. Frédéric, do you see this the same? You do have a lot of experience directly from the customers, as you're really working within projects in really large organizations. Do you can copy that?
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, something I missed to say at the beginning. So we're also happy to be a partner of CIHub, and of course, as soon as we can, to connect the people who are using your CIHub connector, because I think, and regarding what Elliot was saying, this is, I think, the unique way to gather all the content to say, as for example, in InDesign, and to connect to different drives, libraries, and etc. So it's very important to keep this experience on the Adobe desktop side, and no designer wants to get out of the software. They just want to stay in Photoshop and InDesign. So, but regarding finally this supply chain, I think I think we need to get something as an helicopter view, because here the digital supply chain finally refers to the process of using digital technologies to optimize and automate the supply chain operations. So we have different goals, but the idea is really to make the supply chain more efficient, agile, I would say accurate, and customer centric. Okay, so it involves a lot of different steps. So we can talk about the digital information itself, just like as, for example, it involves using cloud-based system for data storage, etc. We can talk about automation, which also include automate warehousing and distribution systems. So it's not all about the digital at the end of the day. We're talking about the connectivity, which is also very important, because we need to enhance connectivity between different parts of the supply chain. So that we achieve from technology such as Internet of Things or blockchain. And of course, we are talking about customer interaction. So at that stage, we are talking about DAM, PIM, CMS, CRM. And as Elliot also was saying, I think today, if you are looking at, this map of Scott from Chief Martech And this year, for the first time, we have more than 10,000. It's 1,000. So what we see today on the customer side, they say, my gosh, how I can start with? Because I find you have so many vendors where I can start. So, and it's very important really to keep the customer needs finally, and working on their I would say on the gap analysis, on the business requirements, etc. Ready to find out the right way to manage this supply chain, but it's definitely not something super easy. And something which is important, as Elliot was saying, is we are more and more working about the customer journey. I took the example because, as for example, and also amazing on our side, because we are working with all of you for different customers. We are working with Censhare for WeWorld, as for example, a publisher in France. We are working with Adobe for most of the blonde luxury or group accor, hospitality, and also with Peter and MediaGraph for different photo agencies. So it's a reason why I'm super happy to talk with you. But as for example, with the Adobe side, as we are talking about Adobe, we have a lot of things that have to be done from the customer journey. So as for example, for a customer just like Group Accor in the hospitality, we made a very complex system, but really in order to track the visitor from the website, connected to the CDP, customer data platform, which is very important to personalize, to segment here this customer journey, link to a CRM, so it can be whatever, Salesforce or whatever. So this is one of the biggest challenges we are facing today. We have a lot of content to manage, but we need to make this content efficient regarding their customer visitor on website and etc.
Okay, Josh, the Censhare system is well known to be a very holistic system, as I understand it. Do you see that different?
No, I don't see it necessarily different, but I will say that when we start to talk about digital supply chain, it does expand past just simple DAM, right? And I know we're on a Henry Stewart-based webinar, and we talk a lot about DAM at Henry Stewart, but even Henry Stewart has expanded beyond that, talking more about content management and about product information management, and Frédéric touched on it. Where you're talking about looking at not just your digital assets, but hey, if we're creating content, let's say for products, we need accurate product data in there. We need a tool that can actually manage content, not just manage assets. So do you have a content editor and a tool like that to be able to create some sort of HTML neutral text that can be published to any channel that you want? Are you tied into a CI hub so that you can, along the process, edit the images or videos that will go into that content? So, I think looking at your different channels that you want to push out to, and do you have the tools in place to actually be able to meet the needs to hit those personalization targets like Elliot was talking about, right? Do you have a tool that can facilitate that with maybe DAM or PIM or CMS and the workflow capability that is needed to have teams collaborate?
Mm-hmm. Peter, from the background that you have, and that's very deep also into the metadata, is there a different point of view for that one? Because metadata is something that's very obvious and it needs to be there anyhow. How do you see that?
Yeah, so I guess I'd start with objectives and say that the objective in the design of our system was not specifically as a marketing tool, and we're I feel like we're going for a larger objective of truth-based storytelling and media management. Hopefully marketing is truth-based, but we also know that it's presenting a point of view. And if we think about the supply chain in that context, then we find some real challenges in bringing in many voices. If we now all communicate with shared media objects, we need Grand Central Station, switching station for the collection and deployment of those objects. And you know, from the metadata standpoint, supply chain and metadata, provenance, tracking, usage, and these days the big one, authenticity, is such a huge part of this whole supply chain concept. Who vouches for the truth? And you know, one of the things that we work with our clients for is to help them, or you know, we believe that mission-based institutions, for instance, will be excellent organizations to vouch for truth.
Okay, interesting. Do you see that AI and everything what we're talking in the last couple of months, so it just popped out of nowhere, is changing that? What is your view on that one, Elliot?
Well, so
and especially Adobe has that amazing looking functionality, Firefly. Is that changing things?
Oh, so the introduction of Firefly has been something that's been in the works for quite some time. And if you think about just the broader space of generative AI, unless you've been living underneath a rock, like it's been, I think, transforming a lot of the ways that we think about creating customer experiences and creating content, and leveraging content, and just the imagination that we have. You know, we thought about these things are now crossing that threshold towards reality. And the way that I think about it is, you know, thinking back about the supply chain. You know, you're thinking about the planning cycle, the production cycle, delivery and optimization. AI has an ability to transform all of those different steps across those supply chain in a very real way today. So if you take a look at, for example, some of the Firefly technology that you've seen released, and some of you are probably playing around with the beta on the website, we're seeing creatives use that upfront now for ideation and planning. And we're actually seeing different hotel groups, for example, that actually formed a center of excellence right now. Actually, how do you toy around with these type of technologies to inspire, if you will? Then you get into production and you start to think about how it can assist the production pipeline. So you've probably seen some of the exciting technologies out there. There's many different generative AI technologies out there, but Adobe, we've built this directly into our applications as well, where it's starting to actually change and help the creative with essentially co-piloting tools, so they can create much more expressive, much more imaginative content that they never thought they could do before in much less time. Then you start to couple that with automation that you want to get towards, where again, as I mentioned, you think about the pressure this supply chain is being brought about because the goal is to create a great customer experience, and that's personal for an individual. And in the past, it was very hard to do, right? Like if you think about it, it's very artisan. You need to have one piece of content. It's going to take you 25 days of working with agencies, going back and forth to do it. And then now in moments, AI can help you get you sometimes 80% of the way there in terms of the large volume. So we've seen a massive amount of interest in this technology across the board. And then when we think about the supply chain, especially with the DAM community, we got to reimagine the role that we want to play within our organizations and then with our technology to help better serve that objective of creating great personalized experience.
But everybody, you know, everybody I'm talking about, if it's not from the industry, he says, you know, if you have all of that AI and if you generate all of the images on the fly based on your intention that you have in that moment, wouldn't that be, and it's not just wouldn't be, people asking, you know, why do you need an asset management any longer if every asset is just created on the fly? How do you see that?
Yeah, I can, and others can chime in on this. Is actually a fantastic conversation. When you think about like, what is your core brand value? Like the, you know, at the heart, a lot of it is your content, your existing content, and you want that brand content to be expressive. So you think about this library of content that you've built up over the years, that actually starts to turn into a treasure trove of ways that your own brand become that much more expressive of what you want to do. So that library is going to become a good place to keep some of your existing content, some of the new content, some of the new styles that you may want to express out there as well. And then now that you're going to be showing 10x, 20x the amount of content, think about the role that the DAM plays in what content was approved, what was shown. Because if you start to look across the industries, financial, government, retail, in many cases, you don't want to just create this content that just sort of disappears, like the Snapchat world where you have content and then it's gone. You may need a record of that content, so you may want to repurpose and reuse in other ways, or for legal regulatory purposes as well, of what was shown to this customer in the healthcare scenario. So the DAM's going to play an even more important role as that broker, if you will, of this explosion of content that we have coming through. And the brands that are going to benefit the most are the ones who have this supply chain that's built out. They have the foundation there with the right technology, the right integrations, the right people, the right workflows to take advantage of this massive influx of content that you're going to see coming in as generative AI comes about.
And I think what Elliot said there around the treasure trove is really valuable because it's not just that you have that treasure trove of existing content. That content that was already being created has analytics and data behind it because you're actually able to know, hey, how many views did it get? What type of engagement did it get? What content did the best? And do we want to recreate content that has a similar voice to what has done well in the past versus just creating it all on the fly and not having that storage and not having that treasure trove and not having that data behind it? It is, I would say, probably not the best way to go about it, right? So having that data is really valuable.
Okay.
I think there's a big one here also, which is that we're going to see a lot of hardcore legislation coming down, and having provenance information, where did this come from, is going to be essential. And if you were to base all of your outbound communication on stuff that Firefly made up, it's okay to have 6 fingers. Then, well, that's a real potential minefield, and we shouldn't be getting ahead of ourselves. You know, I think there's some really interesting uses of AI that are large language model, but not necessarily about making fake pictures out of somebody's imagination.
Okay. Yeah. Do you share that?
No, actually, I haven't thought of that. So if you think about the different models that are out there, where one of the things that we focus on at Adobe is making sure that the quality of the content that these models can generate are designed to be commercially safe. Where you start to think about the broad ways you can develop these models of, okay, let me scan other people's IP and create different kinds of content that's out there. That's not necessarily the direction that we want to take with that, where businesses, we're going to rely on this to not only help amplify the supply chain, but also express their brand. And if you think about expressing your brand in a very confident way with some amount of flexibility in there, you need to be able to leverage your own brand identity as a core to do that, and then augment it with a commercially safe approach to do it. So what I think you'll see happen is these models will improve over time, and then you'll see lots of different ways that, you know, we as vendors, we can help support the different legislation and governance and guidelines that may come across the various industries. So depending on if you're in the EU or in the Americas, you may have different legislation there that we can help support by building that directly into the workflows or into the software, or giving out the best practices. But at the end of the day, what we know is not going to change is our customer experiences. The demand for customer experience is going to be continuously on this ascent, where the days where you can have a mediocre piece of content is behind us. Like the expectation of content is going to be excellent and also personalized with the help of these tools is going to become the new standard. So I'm looking forward to that more creative, more expressive world by taking advantage of whatever tools become available and doing it in a very commercially safe way.
Yeah, so something maybe I will add at the top, so everything you say makes a lot of sense, but I think 25 years ago, Steve Jobs was saying one thing: you cannot build an experience just based on some bullet points of technology. So it's very important to sit down on the customer side, try to understand how they are working, and then backwards to the engineers finally to find the right way to enhance this experience. And to be honest, today, if I'm looking at what all the vendors are doing, maybe without these ChatGPT things, maybe we are not talking about that, in fact. But when we are looking at most of vendors, it's very poor at that moment. So we have, and especially for the DAM space, we have some very static things. We are not talking at all about predictive workflows or things like that. So it's a lot of very custom setup. Okay, I want to display all images, all photo, etc. But when I compare, for example, with company, and especially in the CDP space, just like BrownConic or Content Square, etc., these guys, they are trying to analyze what a customer is doing in the platform. And then they are trying to propose something different because he is used to play with such content or such data. And at the end of the day, it's all about the data. And so something I will say with one of my friends, who is Luc Julia. This is the father of Siri, and remember Andreas, he was last year at our event. And so, and the book is AI Does Not Exist. And in fact, it doesn't mean it does not exist. It's just because it's just based on the data itself. And we saw as, for example, because we are not only doing DAM things, but a lot of PIM things. And so I got the pleasure to be on the in-river pinpoints in April in Chicago. And something we saw there, and this example is very good. A PIM is gathering all the product information. So it's real data, okay? It's not searching something in the web, and etc. And everything which is consolidated in their integration makes a lot of sense. So it can describe, it can put some description of the products, it can do some more advanced translation, etc. So this technology makes sense for the end user, I would say. But for the generative AI, I think, as for example, a lot of people, a lot of vendors are trying to figure out to do something. Guys, in fact, when you are looking back to how agencies are working, the creation is on the agency side. The DAM is just publishing the completed information. So I do not see something starting inside the DAM. But if you have, as for example, your connector, Andreas, because you can move from stock to drives to a different DAM system, PIM, etc. Yes, it makes sense because you start from the on the creative operations side, okay? And so doing, as for example, in stock, generative AI makes sense because this is where you start the creative operations. And then you can start workflows, approving the content, and then after that, as soon as the documents are completed, okay, it's pushing the DAM, then put some metadata, and that's all, okay? So I think it's we don't have to confuse sometime, I will say, activity, productivity, and technology. It's very important to bring some order in this complexity, because at the end of the day, I see a lot of users say that, my gosh, what's going on? We see a lot of things, but nothing is happening really to solve our problems.
Okay.
I'd like to say, I'd just make sure to say that I think Adobe has done a very good job of having licensed source material for their AI engine, which gives them a real advantage. But you know, I'm in a place right now, this conference I happen to be at right now, where it's university communications. They absolutely cannot use images that are greatly altered, and definitely can't use images that were generated completely with AI. But the AI tools that can do knowledge management have some very interesting place when you're in an environment where there's a very long tail of usefulness for the history and information about an institution. Completely different than what Firefly can do, but you know, potentially very interesting for a large language model.
Okay.
Yeah. But as you said, in fact, Peter, I do agree with you, because in the meantime, Adobe is starting from where creative people are starting, so from Photoshop, so or stock and etc. So it's easier, I would say. Reason why I think for the others, it's important to use such a tool like your, you know that Andy, I do a lot of the advertising for your connector, but at one time, it's very important for the others to be connected to this creative content, okay? And of course, it's easier for Adobe because they created everything from the beginning since so many years. So, but
so let me comment on a couple of things as well. So, if you think about the AI technology that they've been, it's not something that sort of just happened in the last 3 months, especially within Adobe tools. We've actually been using those tools. Anytime you're using the neural filters, for example, in Photoshop to help adjust the colors or the look or something like that, that is actually coming in from AI. I think what's changed is some of the models have changed. It's made it even more expressive. So I would actually challenge it to say the artists and expressors have actually been using this technology for quite some time to do their job today and just been more amplified. So those tools are just going to get better and help them do their jobs even better. But then there's one other audience I would probably look at as well, where you think about the creative audiences where they're using these tools for more expressive power and precision inside Photoshop, for example. For example, that generative fill to span out a background, or maybe to crop things in, or maybe to make something more expressive. We're seeing a tremendous amount of usage there. So more and more content is going to be created and put into the supply chain. But when I think about CI Hub, you're on a mission right now to democratize that access to content across the enterprise. And one of the reasons why we've been partnering with CI Hub and getting closer here is it's not just the creative team and working with the marketing team and getting the content into the DAM that makes the customer experience. As I mentioned before, from that story I was talking about earlier with that CMO, they wanted the entire organization to take part in that experience creation journey. So whether you're in sales and your regional marketing teams, they're using many different types of applications that need to sign and source that content. What we found is getting that content approved and then using those channels, and you're following those users and following the use cases and figure out what exactly are you doing. They actually those end users want to do a little bit more. So take the local marketer who finds that asset in the DAM. They're using tools like Adobe Express, for example, to create maybe that final banner that's going to go into an email or going into a digital sign. And what we've done is not only made tools a little bit easier to do there, which you're starting to see lots of tools in the market to help you do that, but then if you start to infuse AI in there, you start to assist people kind of like me who've never really been a creative to create and be more expressive and leveraging that brand identity to do that. So if you think about the opportunity around this supply chain where we have, the technology, the machinery, coming from our different vendors, the connectivity that, teams like Andreas is putting in there together, and you start to think about the workflows, don't forget about taking a very close look at the people involved in that, where it's not just a creative team, but these other teams that we're going to start to empower with easier tools to help make this personalization experience a reality.
Yeah, I think an easier tool and accessibility, this is the only key to leverage what we have as in our backends already into a larger organization. Yeah. There's another question coming up. That's is there actually already systems that are, let's say, closed AI systems where users can really trust that that AI engine is only fed by approved or compliant assets? Because I do think from lots of discussions we are hearing is that this is really a big concern for corporates on having that.
I don't know if there's a system that's only approved and compliant that's being fed because you need a lot of data within to then reproduce an AI article or whatnot, right? And so, no one fully trusts what is coming out, but I do think, as other people have said, that this is a great assistant. For example, Censhare has a Chat GPT connector built into the platform, so people can build content quickly with Chat GPT right in the platform. have it available, but you need to be able to look at it. And, you know, as Frédéric said, you know, with PIM data, is this article that was written about this product, is the data accurate? Do I have that information at my fingertips as a creative? Do I have product information at my fingertips in the same platform? Or do I have to go dig through it through some PDFs or some other system, some, you know, ERP system that I'm not really familiar with, right? From a compliance standpoint, is that content being approved? So you need to be able to work it through. And so I don't know that there's a system that is fully compliant that's feeding the data in, because you need so much data. And you also, I guess there's a risk there. You have to worry about where is the data coming from that is being fed in, and is it possibly inbreeding data? In other words, taking other data that's out there that's already been created and inbreeding that data where you maybe have you don't have a very good outcome at the end, right? So those are risks that need to be mitigated, but I do think there's a great opportunity in the assistance of it, as Elliot said, to create more content and maybe more voices.
Okay. Do you think that, and everybody actually was talking about blockchain? I think that was we always see it, you know, that's a hype that's already gone. But couldn't be the blockchain something what could help in, you know, tracking and being or archiving compliance, and that would now play a role and could add a value to all of that? Would that be something what could help the digital supply chain, or will that just be a buzzword that, you know, doesn't have any impact in the long term?
I say no.
I'm not jumping on the blockchain one. I mean, blockchain is one possible way of implementing the same thing. That I think what we're looking for is trust around the content that's being there. I think there's many different ways to do it. At Adobe, we've started what we call the content authenticity initiative as well, right? So we can understand where content is coming from, and even everything that we generate from our model, which we actually are using our own content from that. So we're actually keeping it pure. Actually, is marked and say it's generated by AI. So you make sure you have a record for that that's managed in the metadata. And I think there's other ways that we can start to think about it as a community, make sure that as these technologies come in there, we know how this content was created, and is it going to be safe for commercial use. We went a little bit step further and said, hey, you know, we're actually going to provide indemnification as well for legal, anything that's created from our system, because we're going to keep it that pure for this moment. So it'd be very interesting to see all the different approaches that come along with this, given, you know, we start to think about DAM as the place where that trusted content is coming from. Where, you know, we've been thinking about the copyrights and legal rights management and all that for quite some time. You don't want to sort of pollute your system without having a way to identify and understand the risk of the content that's in there, so you can make sure you can scale in a very managed way.
But actually, all of that can already be achieved without any kind of blockchain stuff, right?
Right. Sure. Blockchain is just an inefficient database that can't be fixed when mistakes are in there.
That's really a good point. I love that. Yeah. So I would say,
and really, it does go back to who's vouching for the authority. You know, the whole concept of a trustless system in a blockchain. You know, what we're talking about is somebody needs to vouch for it, and Adobe's vouching for their part by actually putting an indemnification in there. And when I saw in 2016, Adobe was at Adobe Max, and they were showing, hey, we make grass and it's not pasted in, we're making it from Adobe stock. And I thought, oh, holy crap, this is going to be interesting. And that was very, very smart. But there has to, you know, this is where the institution that owns the image, or that initiates the image, that publishes the image, has to vouch for it. And that, you know, it's not a technical solution. There, you know, metadata will help, DAM will help, but it's got an institution.
with all of the AI stuff in the digital supply chain, and the discussion of, is AI replacing creative people within agencies and all of that? Do you think that the ethical consideration, let me put it that way, is something what is also just something what we're talking about because it's en vogue and you have to talk about all of that stuff? Or is that something what adds a value or is needed to make sure certain other things are working or are supported? Is that something what is relevant, or is it just a hype discussion as we have it with all of the gender stuff and things like that?
I think it's a very good point. And 2 months ago, we are part of a CEPIC organization to leverage rights alongside photographers, etc. And I was also on the stage with one of your colleagues by Adobe, Andy Parsons, or working on content, on authenticity and initiatives and etc. And something is important to know that, and especially so now I will leverage your Adobe stuff, but now from Photoshop to all the tools, you have a lot of things where you can control the rights and etc. So it's very important because whatever you can get out from Photoshop, it's important to manage. And of course, it's also based on metadata, reason why we're also working with Google and IPTC organization really to put some standard. It's very important. By the way, it's true that, and I think everybody saw this picture from Jason Allen using the AI Midjourney, and so what's happened at the end, he get the award. So definitely we have at one way to bring some regulations. First of all, in Europe, it's nearly done. I'm not sure it's worldwide, so we just have to get a common standard for just to protect creativity and photographers.
Yeah. Okay.
One thing I thought that came up with is whenever there's a massive technology shift, there's always lots of uncertainty and risk involved in there, as well as a lot of value that we potentially see. And I think right now we're in the phase where we're kind of navigating through that. And like, what does this mean for my business? What does this mean for me in terms of my role? Well, you think about not even just the generative imagery, but ChatGPT. Think about what it's doing with text, and if you used to do transcriptions or used to write content, that's changing dramatically. And I think the jury's still out of how that plays out. But I often look back at other technology shifts, and the one that came to mind was when the spreadsheet was first introduced. And if you think about, if you were an accountant at the moment when the spreadsheet was introduced, you are probably thinking, oh my God, my life is over. The spreadsheet and I am completely finished. And if you think about the explosion of where that we've taken now today with the spreadsheet, where yes, we all have spreadsheets probably on our laptops and we're using it in very different powerful ways, but now that's just become more commonplace. But the expectations of what you can do with this data has risen to the highest levels. So what my bet is, I'm betting the same thing is going to happen with content as well, where the expectations of content is going to be much more democratized and out there, and we're just going to see much better content than we've seen in the past, and much more pervasive and ubiquitous content. Tools will be more enabled, so more of us can become content creators that we've always been aspiring to. At least I've been aspiring to be. So hopefully more as a co-pilot rather than a replacement for their current role.
Yeah, I think I don't think most companies are just going to automatically replace people with AI, at least right now. The other thing I think of in the advertising world, they talk a lot about reach and frequency. How much reach do you have and how much frequency? How many times is someone seeing your message, right? And I would say most companies aren't hitting their reach and their frequency goals, not even close. And if they said, hey, this is the content we're producing right now, we could have it 5x or 10x. That would allow us to then segment to these other niches or these other voices or these other personas, whatever you want to call it. and deliver better content to a wider array of people that's more personalized, I think most companies would be excited about that. They'd be excited about the fact that I can have my same staff reach more people with more frequency.
Okay, I have a provocative question on that. So as we all know, the whole notion of creating more content is actually about creating more content to be more SEO or SEA compliant, so people can find me better. But aren't we creating more content so that machines fill their algorithm to find us better? So, and now we're using AI to create content to be found by AI. Isn't that something what might be is not really feeding the real need of users? And if we go away from search engines, yeah, because AI does things different, we may don't need so many content because it's, you know, clever mechanisms, and it's not just SEO optimized content that anyhow is not read by people but by machines.
So, yeah, something I can tell you that in DAM system, definitely something has to be done, because most of search are stupid, in fact. And something we have to fix the problem in order to more. A lot of people say, "Yeah, we have a search just like Google." It's not Google, okay? So even you don't have any fuzzy search or things like that. So definitely, we are waiting for something much more advanced and smart. And when you said, does it replace human people? Yes, AI can replace monkeys, but it will never replace smart people. And you know what was saying here, Geoffrey Hinton just left from Google. He said that moment right now they are not more intelligent than, it's not so intelligent than us. But of course we can be scared about the future. We just need to put some regulations, but
yeah. I would respond to Andreas. I think your question around AI, just speaking to AI, I think at the end of the day, there's going to be a real person at the end of that customer experience.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, the measure of your business is going to be, is this person aware of your brand? Are they engaging with your brand? Are they purchasing your product or services? And many of us have probably transitioned into much more of a subscription-based business or a constant engaging business where we need to be constantly feeding content to a specific individual or a group of individuals that's fresh, that's engaging, that makes them to react, and that's going to be meaningful for them. And some may respond to content of a specific tone or layout or color, but that still needs to be rooted in your brand identity. And I think when you think about these tools, what they're helping you do is create much more content than you had before. And then the AI can actually help you in the management process of that as well, because now that you created all this content, you need to have a good way of quickly approving it, making sure it's still on brand and identity. But at the end of the day, that individual at the end, whether they see this on their mobile device or they're going to see it on a big screen or in some other format, that's going to be the person that's going to drive your business. So the AI is just going to be the tool to help optimize that and make it much more efficient and much more precise towards that individual to make sure that they're engaging how you are intending them to.
Okay.
right.
Friends, it's already, we just have 5 minutes left, or we have 6 minutes left. An hour is always 60 minutes too short. Is there anything what you could give as an short-term advice to people on how they should think within their organizations on how to engage supply chain, how to enable supply chain, how to make the supply chain, introduce it or make it more efficient? Maybe everybody has a minute to talk about that. And then we may have 2 more questions that I would like to put into the round in the last 5 minutes.
I'll get started. I think
Perfect.
if you're on this, you're attending this, your organization, maybe take a deep look at where you're at as an organization currently and where you want to be. And have you taken your digital supply chain and just taken manual tasks and made them electronic, or have you actually made them digital? and have you put the automations in place to actually produce content at scale that is quality, that is approved, and that is reaching the channels that you want. Making sure that you have the tools in place, the people in place to have a real collaborative process where someone could be working on copy, somebody can be working on images, somebody could be working on the layout, somebody can be working on the channels and the personas all at the same time. So not just taking something that was manual and a struggle and turning it electronic, but really making it digital, collaborative, and omni-channel. And that's, if you're an organization, you want to take a look at where you are and where you want to be and how do you get there.
Okay, cool.
All right. I will say just maybe a very quick word. So I think it's all about the people. Okay. Of course, we have the technology. So just like Peter, I'm a photographer. Okay, and I'm super happy that at that moment, coming from my Z9, I can use some AI capabilities to protect my pictures, to get the software in Photoshop to protect all the content. We just need to get the right platform to protect everything. But at the end of the day, for this supply chain, I think it's all about the people. Whatever the technology you have, or Hamilton, Formula One pilot say, the success is all about the car and the driver. So if you have a good car and not the driver, you cannot be successful.
Great.
Okay, cool.
One, quick thing to say, I think it's less about supply chain and more about the AI discussion is that, it's very early in the game. Things are moving very fast, but essentially what's happened is natural language processing has gotten to the point where it can speak and understand, or appear to speak and understand. It isn't really understanding. And that is freaking people out. And the same thing with the ability to understand images and to therefore run in reverse and create images. Is realistic looking images, just like realistic looking speech. And where this is going to actually be useful is something to look out for, and I think be not necessarily rush into, but think about how it's actually going to help you solve a real problem. We've come up with a couple of things that we think are going to be quite useful for our customers, but it's taken a while to get there. A while. Okay, yeah, we've been thinking about it now for what, 8-12 weeks.
Yeah, we are. I think Elliot said that we are extremely early in that process. Yeah. And we all have no idea on what will happen in the next 12 months on all of that. So, if we look back at our headline, it's all hype, what that without it, I would say there's just no chance of today to make a decision if it's hype or if it's really needed. Yeah. So that's the way it is. Yeah. We do have 1 minute left. It's always said to just interrupt it when it's really getting interesting. I think most of us are at the Henry Stewart DAM Europe event next week in London. I'm pretty sure that everybody would be open if someone from the audience has some more questions to just connect with each other and talk about that stuff. And I would like to say a huge thank you to all of you. First of all, to everybody who has listened. I think we have an amazing crowd of people listening to that webinar. Thanks a lot, Elliot, for your time. I know you're really busy, especially after the Adobe Summit. There's amazing stuff going on at Adobe. Thank you, Fred, to make some time between your wonderful customer engagements, and I know you have a lot of them. Yeah. Josh, thanks for joining in from the States. I hope to see you at the Henry Stewart event in New York. And Peter, it's really a pleasure to have you here, not just as a writer of one of the relevant books, but also from MediaGraph. Thanks to all of you. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you, Andy.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Andreas, for a great webinar today. A link to access the recording of the session will be sent to all attendees tomorrow. For more information about our upcoming courses, events, and webinars, visit our website, www.henrystewartconferences.com/events, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.
And let me just add one. There are some open questions. We will answer all of these questions with the link you get and with the blog post on our website. Enjoy this amazing, what is it, Thursday evening? We have a huge thunderstorm coming up, and we are just finishing in time for that. Have a good one. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.